Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Butterfly Empire podcast. It is me, your butterfly queen. Really, hopefully you did bring your mom this time. She seems like a nice lady. I just want to meet her. Maybe your dad. Either way, today we are covering the Yorkshire Ripper. Serial killer. Now that I keep thinking of all the episodes I've covered, it's normally happened between the 1960s and 1980s, when all the serial killers kept popping up. Because this one was, 1975 and 1980. By a gay lovely guy called Peter William Sutcliffe, also known as Peter Coonan. He was an English serial killer who was convicted of murdering 13 women and attempting to murder 7 others. He was dubbed in press reports as the Yorkshire Ripper, in allusion to the Victorian serial killer Jack the Ripper. So he copied what Jack the Ripper was doing, but in a different place. He was sentenced to 20 concurrent sentences of life imprisonment, which were converted to a whole life order in 2010. 2 of Sutcliffe's murders took place in Manchester. All of the others were in West Yorkshire. So, criminal psychologist David Holmes characterized Sutcliffe as being an extremely callous, sexual, seductive serial killer. Per usual. Sutcliffe initially attacked women and girls in residential areas, but appears to have shifted his focus to red light districts because he was attracted by the vulnerability of prostitutes and the perceived attitude of police to the prostitute's safety. Okay. After his arrest, the Yorkshire police were driving with false number plates. In January of 1981, he was transferred to the custody of West Yorkshire police, who questioned him about the killings. Sutcliffe confessed to being the perpetrator, saying that the voice of God had sent him on a mission to kill prostitutes. At his trial, he pleaded not guilty to murder on grounds of diminished responsibility. But he was convicted of murder on a majority verdict. Following his conviction, Sutcliffe began using his mother's maiden name of Coonan. The search for him was one of the largest and most extensive manhunts in the British history. West Yorkshire police faced heavy and substantive criticism for the failure to catch him, despite having interviewed him 9 times in the course of their 5-year investigation. Owing to the sensitive nature of the case, the police handed an exponential amount of information, some of it misled according to a hoax conspiracy purporting to be from the Ripper, known as the Byford Report. The findings were made fully public in 2006 and confirmed the validation of the criticism of the force. The report led... Sorry, my mind just went swoop. 3 rows down. The report led to changes to investigate procedures that were adopted across the UK police forces. Since his conviction, Sutcliffe had been linked to a number of other unsolved murders and attacks. Sutcliffe was transferred from prison to a Broadmoor hospital in March of 1984 after being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. You remember what I said in my last one? If you didn't, it will be at the end of the video, whatnot. But most of these serial killers had schizophrenia, or a horrible background that led to it. The High Court dismissed an appeal by Sutcliffe at 2010, affirming that he would serve a whole life order and never be released from custody. In August 2016, it was ruled that he was mentally fit to be returned to prison, and he was transferred Back to prison. Sutcliffe died in a hospital from diabetes-related complications while in prison and custody in 2020 at age 74. Coffee break. Okay, let's learn his background. He was born on June 2nd, 1946, to a working-class family in Bingley, West Riding, in Yorkshire. His parents were John Sutcliffe and his Irish wife, Kathleen Frances Coonan, a native of Connemara. Kathleen was Roman Catholic and John was a member of the choir at the local church. Their children were raised in their mother's Catholic faith, and Sutcliffe briefly served as an altar boy. Sutcliffe was a premature baby, having to spend 2 weeks in the hospital, and his mother was the victim of domestic abuse, making it likely she struggled through her pregnancy under great emotional stress. His father was a heavy drinker who once smashed a beer glass over his head for sitting in his chair at the Christmas table when he was 5 years old. He also hated his mother. She was the B word, and the least said about her, the better. He would frequently dismiss the slightly built Peter as a wimp, also hanging from his mother's apron, a mommy's boy. His mother often lavished attention of her son and was becoming seen by Sutcliffe as perfect. John also would whoop his children with a belt as a form of punishment. His siblings later described their father as a monster. According to his younger brother, the atmosphere in that house would change as soon as the father walked in. His life revolved around playing football, cricket, singing in a choir, beer, and womanizing his father. But when he was 4 years old, he went to school where he was severely bullied. 1970. Okay. He was obsessed with voyeurism. Don't know what that is. Pretty much, let me see if I can put this in terms I won't get canceled. Watching other people do the deed. Okay. And spent much time spying on prostitutes and men seeking their service, so he can get a looky-loo. Reportedly a loner, he left school at the age of 15 and had a series of little jobs here and there. He was a gravedigger. Because of the occupation, he developed a macabre sense of humor. Coworkers reported that he enjoyed his work too much and would even volunteer to do overtime washing the corpse. Ew. Between November 1971 and April 73, he worked at a television factory on the packaging line. He left his position when he was asked to go on the road as a salesman. After leaving the television company, he would work night shifts at I don't know what that is. From April 1973. And then in 75, he took redundancy and used half of $400 paying off to train as a heavy goods vehicle driver. March 76, he was dismissed for the theft of used tires. He was unemployed until October 1976 when he found a job as HGT driver. He reportedly hired prostitutes as a young man and is speculated that he had a bad experience during which he was conned out of money by a prostitute and her pimp. Other analyses of his actions have not found evidence that he actually sought the services of prostitution, but note that nonetheless developed an obsession with them, including watching them solicitate on the streets. He met a woman. She was studying to become a teacher. And she was diagnosed with paranoia, schizophrenia also. They married in 1974, and her relationship with her husband was later characterized by somebody as demeanoring, with Sonia willing to slap him down like a little naughty schoolboy. While her husband even had to occasionally contain her physically by pinning her arms to her side during the common unprovoked outburst of rage. A journalist who had many conversations with his wife Sonia described her as the most irritating, strangest, and coldest person I've ever met. She's so incredibly prickly and demanding. She had many miscarriages. She eventually resumed her teacher training course, during which time she had an affair with an ice cream van driver. When Sonia completed the course, they used her salary to buy a house, into which they moved into in September 26, 1977, where they were living at the time of his arrest. Okay, now we're going to the attacks and the murders. His first documented assault was a female prostitute, per usual, whom he had met while searching for another woman who had tricked him out of money. He left his friend's minivan, walked up the street until he was out of sight. When he returned, he was out of breath, and if he had been running, he told Birdsale to drive off quickly. He said he had followed a prostitute into a garage and hit her over the head with a stone and a sock. You know, the woo. According to his statement, Sutcliffe said, "I got out of the car, went across the road, and hit her. The force of the impact tore the toe off the sock, and whatever was in it came out. I went back to the car and got in it." Police visited Sutcliffe's home the next day, as the woman had noted the vehicle registration plate. Sutcliffe admitting to had hit her, but claimed it was with his hand. He told police that he was very lucky, as the woman did not press charges. 1975, he committed a second assault the night of July 5th, 1975. He attacked 36-year-old Anna, who was walking alone, striking her unconsciously with a hammer and slashing her stomach with a knife. He left without killing her. She survived after brain surgery. She was physically traumatized by the attack. I've been afraid to go out much because I feel people are staring and pointing at me. The whole thing is making my life a misery. I sometimes wish I had died in the attack. On the night of August 15th, attacked a 46-year-old Olive Smith, employing the same prostitute. It's a big word just for that little. He briefly engaged Smelt with a pleasant about the weather before striking hammer blows to her skull from behind. He then disarranged her clothing and slashed her lower back with a knife. Again, he was interrupted and left his victim badly injured but alive. She suffers from severe emotional and mental trauma. August 27th. Targeted 14-year-old Tracy Brownie. Attacked her from behind and hitting her over the head 5 times while she was walking along a country line. He ran off when he saw the lights of a passing car, leaving his victim requiring brain surgery. He was not convicted at the time, but confessed in 1992. She had been charmed by Sutcliffe's at first. He had walking together for almost a mile for about 30 minutes and never once felt intimidated or in danger. Well, stranger danger. The first victim to actually be killed was 28 Wilma, October 30th. Was a mother of 4 children, struck the back of her skull twice with a hammer, and then inflicted a stab wound to the throat. 2 stab wounds below the right breast, 3 stab wounds below the left one, and series of 9 stab wounds around the stomach area. 7:30 p.m., she was last seen leaving her council house, walking nearby the playing fields. They had so many extra words that doesn't need to be given. An extensive inquiry involving 150 officers and 11,000 interviews failed to find the culprit. December 2007, her oldest daughter died by suicide, reporting after years of anguish and depression over the circumstances of her mother's death and consequences to her and her siblings. 1976. Committed his next murder in Leeds on January 20th, 1976, where he stabbed 42-year-old Emily 52 times. Hit her in the head with a hammer, dragged her body into a rubbish yard, then used a sharpened screwdriver to stab her in the neck, chest, and abdomen. Died, leaving behind impressions of his boot. Sutcliffe attacked 20-year-old Marcel. May 9th, walking home from a party, she accepted an offer of a lift from the sky. When she got out of the car to urinate, he hit her from behind with a hammer. She survived, testified against him at his trial. She was 4 months pregnant. She miscarried the baby. She had multiple brain operations and had intimidated blackouts and chronic depression. 1977. On February 5th, Sutcliffe attacked 28-year-old Irene, prostitute. Richard has last seen at 11:15, leaving a room and house, saying she was going to Tiffany's, a pub and disco in the center of Leeds. Richardson was bludgeoned to death with a hammer and had been stabbed 3 times in the stomach when she died. Shoe prints were also found the same time as the last one. 2 months later, April 23rd, Sutcliffe killed 32 Patricia Tina, a prostitute who police found her boot print and bed clothing. He hit her on the back of the head 4 times with incapacitating her. Sutcliffe then pulled down her pants and exposed her breast. He then stabbed her 6 times in her stomach with a knife. June 25th, 1977, 16-year-old Jane. The extent of her injuries was not revealed at the time. She had been hit on the head 3 times with a hammer and had been stabbed in the chest and back. A broken bottle was found embedded in her chest. The following month, on July 10th, my birthday, but different year, 1977, assaulted 43-year-old Maureen. Long was leaving a nightclub He gave her a lift home. She stopped to pee. Stop stopping to pee. Struck her on the head, knocked her out. Suffered from hypothermia when she was found. Was in the hospital for 9 weeks. October 1st, 1977. 20-year-old Jean, prostitute. Hit her on the head before proceeding to hit her 10 more times. October 9th, Jordan's body was discovered. December 14th, attacked Marilyn Moore, 25-year-old prostitute. Sutcliffe lost his balance while delivering a blow to Moore with a hammer, allowing Moore to escape with several head injuries but still alive. 1978. They still think it's Jack the Ripper. Sutcliffe killed Yvonne Ann Pearson, a 21-year-old prostitute, on July 21st, 1978. He repeatedly bludgeoned her about the head with a ball-peen hammer, then jumped on her chest before stuffing horsehair into her mouth from a discarded sofa, under which he hid her body near a lane. 10 days later, on January 31st, he killed Helen, an 18-year-old prostitute, striking her on the head 5 times as she exited his vehicle before stripping most of the clothes from her body, although her bra and polo neck jumper were positioned above her breast, and repeatedly stabbed her in the chest. The next one is a 40-year-old Berna, prostitute, telling a boyfriend that she was going out to buy cigarettes. Sutcliffe picked her up, and after she got out of his car, Sutcliffe attacked her with a hammer. After she died, Sutcliffe dragged her body against the fence and began to stab her repeatedly with a knife. 1979, April 4th. Killed Josephine, a 19-year-old clerk who was attacked on her way home. Sutcliffe hit Wickham from behind with a ball-peen hammer and hit her again, and she laid on the ground. He then proceeded to stab her 21 times with a screwdriver in the chest and stomach, 6 times with the right leg, and before also thrusting the screwdriver into her. No, not going there. Her skull was fractured to ear to ear. Forensic evidence, police hours were diverted for several months following the receipt of tape measures perpetrating from the murderer. The tape contained a man's voice saying, "I'm Jack. I see you're having no luck catching me. I have the greatest respect for you, George, but Lord, you're nowhere near catching me." Now that 4 years ago, when I started. Based on the recording, police began searching for a man with a Wearside accent. He was then dubbed Wearside Jack. Sent 2 police letters to the Daily Mirror in 1978, boasting for his crime. The letters signed Jack the Ripper, claiming responsibility for the murder of 26-year-old Joan Harris in Preston in 1975. And if I remember, Jack the Ripper, he sent multiple letters to the police, taunting them, saying, "You can't catch me, you can't get me," but sign it Jack the Ripper. So this guy is trying to be like, I'm killing while you never caught Jack the Ripper. So later on, of course. The hoax case was reopened in 2005. The DNA is taken from envelopes and entered into the natural database. The DNA matched that of John Samuel Humble, an employed alcoholic and longtime resident. A few miles of Castletown, whose DNA had been taken following a drunk and disorderly offense in 2001. In 2005, Humble was charged with attempting to pervert the course of justice for sending the hoax letters and the tape. He was remanded in custody in 2006 and convicted and sentenced to 8 years in prison. Humboldt died July 30th, 2019 at age 63. September 1st, Sutcliffe murdered 20-year-old Barbara. She was a student. Her body was dumped over a pile of bricks close to the university and her blood. The murder of another woman who was not a prostitute again alarmed the police and prompted to an expensive public campaign. Despite the false lead, Sutcliffe was interviewed on at least 2 of the other connections. In 1979, despite matching several forensic clues and being on the list of 300 names, he was not strongly a suspect. 1980. June 26, 1980, Sutcliffe was stopped while driving, tested positive for drunk driving, and was arrested. Whilst awaiting trial for this, due to mid-January 1981, he killed 74-year-old Margaret on the night of August 20, 1980. She left her office. He incapacitated her with a hammer blow to the back of the head, and as he continued to strike her while yelling, "Filthy prostitute," behind the driveway. In order to move her 20 yards from the place he attacked above the driveway, he first tied a length of a rope around her neck and tightened it. He choked her there, kneeling on her chest and removing almost every piece of clothing from her once she was dead. September 24th, 1980, a 34-year-old doctor. I'm going to butcher this name. Upadhyaya. Upadhya. Apayada. She was walking home. He followed her into an alley. He struck on her head, rendered her unconscious, and then he dragged her all in straight with a rope around her neck and fled. Maureen Moe, 21-year-old student, was attacked by Sutcliffe October 25th, 1980. She was in the pub with her friends. She woke up in the hospital with a puncture hole to the back of her skull, a fractured cheekbone, a broken jaw, several spinal cord, and numerous scratches and bruises. 16-year-old Taisha, November 5th, 1980. Her boyfriend heard her screams and ran out, scaring Sutcliffe off. She was recovering from brain surgery when he was arrested. November 25th, 1980. A friend of Sutcliffe's and the unwitting getaway driver in the first document, assaulted in 1969, reported him to the police as a suspect, and told Sutcliffe had been questioned by the police 9 separate occasions in connections with the Ripper, inquiring for his eventual arrest and conviction. 20-year-old Jacqueline was murdered the night of November 17, 1980. She was returning home. Sutcliffe delivered a blow to her head before removing her clothes and stabbing her repeatedly in the chest and once in the eye with a screwdriver. Okay, let's move to the arrest and trial. January 2nd, 1981. Stopped by police with a 24-year-old prostitute, Olivia, in the driveway. Police checked the proprietary constitution. Anyway, Sutcliffe's car had been false number plates. He was arrested and transferred to the police station. He was questioned and related to the Ripper case, and he matches many of the known physical characteristics. The next day, the police had a hunch, returned to the scene of the arrest and discovered a knife, a hammer, a rope, and that Sutcliffe had discarded behind an oil storage tank when he briefly slipped away after telling police he was bursting for a pee. Sutcliffe hid a second knife in a toilet at the police station when he was allowed to use the toilet. The police obtained a search warrant for his home and brought his wife in for questioning. Sutcliffe was stripped By the police station, he was wearing an invented V-neck jumper under his trousers. The sleeves had been pulled over his legs. What? In the V-neck that spoke brain hurt Al. So, the jumper. Arms, legs, V-neck, that thing. So, I want to describe this again. The sleeves had been pulled over his legs, and the V-neck exposed his genitalia area. So he was wearing it upside down, with the neck area and his crotch. The fronts of the elbows were padded to protect his knees, as presumably he kneeled over his victims' corpses. After 2 days of questioning, January 4th, 1981, suddenly admitted that he was a Yorkshire Ripper. Over the next day, he calmly described many attacks. Several weeks later, he claimed God had told him to murder the women. The women I killed were filth. He told police bastard prostitutes who were literally littering the streets. I was just cleaning up the place a bit. He was charged January 5th, 1981. At his trial, he pleaded not guilty to 13 charges of murder, but guilty to the manslaughter of the grounds of diminished responsibility. The basis of his defense was that he claimed to be the tool of God's will. Sutcliffe said that he heard horses and he ordered him to kill prostitutes while working as a gravedigger, which he claimed originally from the headstone of a Polish man, and that the voices were that of God. Sutcliffe pleaded guilty to several charges of attempted murder. The prosecution intended to attempt his plea. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Besides his effort, he was found guilty of the murder of all counts and was sentenced to 20 concurrent sentences of life imprisonment. The jury rejected the evidence of 4 psychiatrists who gave testimony that Sutcliffe had paranoid schizophrenia, possibly influenced by the evidence of a prison officer who heard him say to his wife that he convicted people he was mad, and he might get 10 years in a loony bin. Okay. There's plenty of movies and shows about this guy. I just gave you the short, not very detailed. There's plenty of other cases that they think he's involved with, and they're trying to piece it together pretty much as what I'm reading. Short terms, but there's plenty more women, apparently. There's been additional investigations, 2017 now. Barbara, Wendy, Gertie, Mary, Lucy, Gloria, Gloria, Judith, Wendy, Rosina, Allison, Sally. He died in a hospital at the age of 74 on November 13th, 2020. Suspected heart attack. He had a number of undiagnosed health problems, obesity and diabetes. He was cremated. Okay. There's a song that was made about him, The Night Shift by the East post-punk band So and the Banshees, 1981, on their album Juju. It's about Sutcliffe. The song Marilyn Moore by the American rock band Sonic Youth on their 1986 album is about Sutcliffe attempting murder on Marilyn Moore. April 6, 1991, his father talked about his son on the television discuss program After Dark. This is Personal, The Hunt for the Yorkshire Ripper, British television crime drama miniseries first shown on ITV January 26, 2000. Okay. May 13, 2013, episode of Crime That Shook Britain focused on the case. It's all talked about on the radio. The Yorkshire Ripper Files, a very British crime story. There's books. There's a documentary entitled The Ripper. 2021 in November, the band Slipknot released a song titled The Chapeltown Rag, which is inspired by media reporting of the murders. 60 Minutes released a documentary entitled The Ripper Speaks, The Lost Tapes, which recounts interviews and a Sutcliffe speaking about the life imprisonment. The Long Shadow focused on his crimes. Blackout Ripper, Camden Ripper, reporter of serial murders, Midlands Ripper. There's so many different things also included to it. But that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Give you the short and sweet version, If you want to go watch it, you can watch it. I'm pretty sure it's all over multiple places. Just search it. Yorkshire Ripper. Bye.